I won't drag this out, so let's get straight to the anime. One of the main characters is named Hinata, and while riding his bike, he noticed a volleyball game at Karasuno High School. In the match, he saw the so-called Little Giant, who, despite his height, overcame the opponent's blocks. Hinata was so inspired by his play that 3 years later he went to a school volleyball competition. The only problem is that the middle school Hinata attended didn't have a boys' volleyball club, so he had to train either with girls or with those who didn't know how to play volleyball at all. However, despite such obstacles, he still found those who agreed to play with him. For the most part, these were basketball players whom he forced to play with his incredible drive. His team barely managed to gather 6 players, which meant they would play without substitutions. This was the first experience for the guys, and in the very first match they came up against Kageyama, another main character, playing as a setter. He was considered the king of the court, and for good reason, because he was so much more talented than his peers that he easily stood out among them with his game. But with such a huge talent comes an equally huge ego, which interferes not only with him, but also with his teammates, because it was simply impossible to communicate with him. For any failed action, Kageyama was ready to verbally tear anyone apart. Such a vivid image greatly frightened Hinata, but he still managed to find the strength in himself and challenge the king of the court. But no matter how big Hinata's ambitions were, his team was many times weaker than any on this court. Therefore, Hinata was eliminated in the very first match. But with his incredible speed and jumps, he was able to interest Kageyama. Having been eliminated from the tournament, Hinata tearfully told Kageyama that he would become stronger no matter what, and would definitely defeat him. Then it was time to move to high school, and Hinata of course chose Karasuno, which by this time was not nearly as strong as it used to be. Walking around the volleyball hall, Hinata saw his new teammate, namely Kageyama. Of course, he didn't like it because he planned to defeat him and not stand on the same side of the court. At this time, high school students approached them who, it turns out, saw their last year's match and were glad to have such newcomers. Hinata told them that even though he wasn't tall, he jumped higher than anyone else and therefore would definitely become the team's ace. Kageyama didn't like these words and they started arguing, which escalated into a one-on-one match. The older students tried to stop them, but these two didn't listen to them anymore, and it all ended with the ball bouncing off the dean's head due to Hinata's unsuccessful reception of the ball. With their quarrel, they let the team down, for which the team captain Sawamura decided to kick them out, and until they understand that they are really a team, they have nothing to do here. In fact, he just wanted to remove them for a day so that they would cool down a bit and not be so critical of each other. However, Kageyama took it with hostility, and in order to prove that they are a team, he offered Sawamura to play 2-on-2. The captain liked this idea, but he decided to change the rules. They will play against other newcomers to the team, but one more player will be added to both teams. Tanaka, a very energetic wing spiker, was given to Hinata and Kageyama, and Sawamura himself will go to the team of their rivals. The match will take place on Saturday, so they have time to prepare. But they can't train with the team, so they have to get out on their own. And in addition, if Kageyama loses this match, he won't be able to be a setter until the 3rd year. Even though they were not allowed to train with the team, the guys could be in the gym at other times, and Tanaka decided to help them with this, who came to the gym with them at 5 a.m. They were also joined by Sugawara, the main setter and vice-captain of the team. Initially, Kageyama was going to give passes only to Tanaka because he considered Hinata a weak player who couldn't even receive the ball normally, and therefore would not pass to him until Hinata learned how to receive balls. Sugawara helped him with this, who taught Hinata to receive the ball over and over again during breaks. Kageyama noticed his perseverance, so they trained late into the night on the street, where they were approached by newcomers, the same ones they will have to play against on Saturday. Their names were Yamaguchi and Tsukishima. Tsukishima is a rather tall central blocker. He doesn't have much desire to play volleyball, so the purposeful Hinata and Kageyama annoy him. The rest of the days the guys trained hard, and Hinata was still able to improve his ball receiving technique. Kageyama liked his incredible perseverance, so after exhausting training he still rewarded him with his pass, which means that during the match he will play with him too. The day of the match has arrived. At first, everything was more or less even, but at some point Tsukishima began to mentally pressure Kageyama. He told Hinata why he is called the king of the court. It turns out that in that tournament of middle schools, Kageyama's team also did not achieve much success, and this was Kageyama's fault. The fact is that he put so much pressure on his teammates that they simply could not stand it and stopped playing with him, which hit Kageyama very hard. And after that incident, he stopped making quick passes because none of his teammates could simply keep up with them. And the nickname King of the Court does not praise him at all, because it means that Kageyama is a selfish king from whom all the wards turned away. At some point, Hinata forced Kageyama to make a quick pass to him, and even though he failed to score from it, this moment showed Kageyama that Hinata is able to accept any of his serves. But since Hinata had problems with the technique, Kageyama developed a plan. He wanted Hinata to completely trust him and jump with all his might into the free zone, regardless of whether Kageyama would give him a pass or not. And he will give such passes that Hinata will only have to score. And in the end, for the first time, someone was able to score from Kageyama's quick pass. But everyone was surprised that at the moment of Hinata's strike, his eyes were completely closed, which shows, firstly, the incredible accuracy of Kageyama's passes, and secondly, Hinata's gullibility, because no one before him had completely trusted Kageyama. Realizing Hinata's potential, he said that with his passes, he would raise his game to a new level. Of course, they didn't succeed right away, and some even considered their combination a banal luck. However, Hinata, using his incredible speed, outwitted Tsukishima and was able to overcome his block thanks to Kageyama's quick serve. And from that moment, the game was under the control of Kageyama, who either used quick passes with Hinata or gave ordinary passes to Tanaka. As a result, they were able to win this match, and the guys were awarded their new uniform, which means that now they are players of Karasuno High School. After this, Takeda, the curator of their team, comes into the hall. He said that he was able to negotiate a training match and they will play against Seijo, one of the strongest schools in the prefecture. But they agreed to play on one condition. Kageyama must be the setter for the entire match, playing without substitutions. The chance to play against such a strong team is rare, so Sugawara was not against sitting on the bench so that his team could become stronger. Then Sawamura announces the starting lineup. Everyone was surprised that Hinata was put in the position of central blocker because height is important there. However, he will have completely different tasks and functions. Hinata is an absolute decoy whose task is to score goals and divert attention to himself. In other words, during the attack, the blockers will constantly be distracted by Hinata because of his incredible speed, which will allow him to either score goals or score these goals for other attackers. And during the defense, incredible blocks are not expected from Hinata. His task is to try to touch the ball, thereby returning the ball to the game and using a counter-attack. Of course, they do not expect instant success, but they want to train this tactic during a training match. Since such an experience was new to Hinata, he was very nervous, even more than everyone expected. During the match, Hinata's nervousness did not go anywhere, because of which he let his team down several times, and at some point during the serve, he even hit Kageyama in the head, which was considered worse than death. But in response, Kageyama tried to support him, saying that there is nothing worse than hitting his head with a ball, which means the worst is over. Tanaka also cheered him up, saying that in volleyball, everyone on the same side of the net is his comrades, who will always help in difficult times. As a result, they lost the first game. But Hinata's anxiety disappeared. In the second game, Kageyama and Hinata finally began to use their quick serves, for which the opponents were simply not ready. Due to the effect of surprise, Karasuno seized the initiative, and thanks to the efforts of all team members, they were able to take the second game. This boosted team spirit, but according to Kageyama, they should not relax, because the setter in the opposite team is a substitute player. It turned out that the captain, setter, and in general the best player of Seijo was injured, and only now he came to his team to join the game. His name is Oikawa, and according to Kageyama, he was his senpai in middle school. Some of his techniques are borrowed from Oikawa, so they definitely shouldn't underestimate him. Hinata took it to heart, and he began to call the senpai of the king of the court the Great King. Like the second, the third game was under the control of Karasuno. But Okawa, who came on as a substitute, completely turned the tide of the game. He is an incredibly intelligent and observant player, and immediately understood how to stop Hinata's attack. According to him, it will be useless if they can't attack. On top of that, Oikawa has a surprisingly strong serve, and thanks to it, he began to make aces, that is, to earn points with the help of a serve. Despite this, Karasuno was able to adapt, and thanks to Hinata's successful touch, they went on the attack, during which Kageyama and Hinata again used a quick pass, against which Oikawa could not do anything. Thanks to which, Karasuno took the third game and won the training match. Even though they won, Sawamura admitted that if Oikawa had played the whole match, they would only have dreamed of winning. Oikawa himself agreed with this, saying that next time he would defeat them, because his priority is to crush Kageyama. Okawa himself recognizes Kageyama's incredible talent and believes that he simply has no competitors in passes, but in all other aspects of the game, Okawa is stronger. Okawa's words did not frighten Sawamura because Karasuno played with an incomplete squad, as Nishinoya, the team's libero, will soon join them. But the team also has unresolved problems, namely the position of the coach. Their previous coach was Ukai Keishin. under whose leadership Karasuno achieved their best game, but after he was hospitalized, he stopped being the team's coach, because of which Sawamura took over his duties. Takeda even wants to solve this somehow and therefore comes to the owner of a shop named Ukai Keishin, again and again with a request to take on the role of the team's coach, but he constantly receives a refusal. Then Nishinoya joined the team, who turned out to be even shorter than Hinata. But for a libero, height is not important because his main task is to receive all kinds of balls, keeping them for the team, and in this aspect, Nishinoya has no equal. In addition to his talent, Nishinoya has incredible charisma, which helps the team maintain morale. But even though he joined the training sessions, Nishinoya refuses to participate in matches because he will only play if Asahi, the ace and wing spiker of the team, returns to the team. It turns out that Karasuno recently had a match against Date Tech, where almost the best blockers play. In that match, these blockers completely blocked Asahi and knocked Karasuno out of the tournament. Asahi blamed himself entirely for the defeat, believing that at the moment when the team needed him, he let it down, because of which he completely lost confidence in himself, and as a result, he left the team altogether. Nishinoya tried to bring him back, and in a conversation with him, he broke the dean's vase, which is why he was suspended from the team for a month. No one was able to force Asahi to return, so Kageyama and Hinata went to him to see who the best player on the team is. Hinata tells Asahi that he used to be afraid of blocking his attack, but he was always interested to know what the opposite part of the field looks like from above, and thanks to Kageyama's incredible passes, he was still able to enjoy the view from above. His speech sunk into Asahi, and he constantly scrolled through Hinata's words in his head, because even though he left the team, he still wants to play. After that, Takeda comes to the team and says that in the last week of training he managed to negotiate another training match and they will play against one of the best schools in Tokyo called Nekoma. Previously, the confrontation between Karasuno and Nekoma was considered fundamental and even had its own name, namely the Battle at the Dump. But after a while, there was no trace of the Fallen Crows because both teams are going through their own crisis. Karasuno has always been associated with the Raven, and after the team has noticeably surrendered, people began to say that Karasuno is the Fallen Ravens. In addition to this, the confrontation with Nekoma was fundamental also because of the coaches. The coach of the Nekoma team is Nekomata, and his battle with Ukai lasted for many years. Takeda spent a lot of effort on organizing this match, but this was not done just like that, because for the most part, it was all organized in order to once again try to attract Keishin to the team as a coach. Because the whole point is that he is Ukai's grandson, and since in the past he himself was a volleyball player, his knowledge will definitely be able to help the team, and in addition, Takeda expects that his legendary surname will add morale and motivation to the team. Initially, he did not want to have anything to do with Karasuno, but when he found out that they had a game against Nekoma, he immediately changed his mind and promised to prepare the team for this match. But after the match, he will leave the post of coach. As the first training session, he transfers his district volleyball team. These are former Karasuno players who now get together from time to time after work to play. The Karasuno team will have to play with them, but Keishin must watch the game, so he will not be able to play. In addition, they are missing 2 more players, as they were unable to get time off from work, so they need to add as many as 3 players to their team. First, they took Nishinoya and Sugawara as a setter, and the third player will be Asahi, who finally overcame himself and came to training. Even though Keishin's team had not trained for a long time and was no longer so energetic, each of its members had incredible experience, and therefore they were able to resist high school students on equal terms. In addition, Asahi is not called the ace of the team for nothing, and with his powerful blow, with which he overcame the blocking of 3 players at once, Asahi showed the first years why he is called the best. And even though Kageyama and Hinata, using their quick attacks, also scored goals, they still have to train for a long time and learn a lot, so the seniors won this match. After the match, they thanked the students for the game and said that Karasuno has truly amazing players who, with proper training, will be able to climb to unprecedented heights. Having seen their game from the outside, Keishin realized that first of all, it was necessary to practice receiving the ball, and therefore intensive training would begin for them from tomorrow. In addition, Keishin has a new headache, because he has to choose the main setter. It is clear that Kageyama is a genius and can use high-speed attacks, but on the other hand, the team has Sugawara, who, although he does not have such an incredible game, compensates for all this with a perfect understanding of the feelings of the attackers. In addition, he is a third-year student, and for him, as well as for Sawamura and Daichi, this tournament will be the last. The team began to train hard for the upcoming tournament, and in order for the guys to rally more strongly, they went to a training camp for a week. Then, during the run, Hinata was so carried away by the confrontation with Kageyama that he accidentally ran away from the team, and there he met a guy who was clearly not from here, and since he did not know the area, he could only wait. Hinata immediately began to get acquainted with him. His name is Kozume, and with the help of equipment in his bag, Hinata realized that he was also a volleyball player, but he didn't really have the desire to play. The only thing that makes him play is his friends. Kozume stands in the position of a setter, and that's because there is less need to move there. They didn't have time to finish talking because Tetsuro, the captain of his team, came for Kozume, and Hinata just found Sugawara. Before the match, the guys were given their new uniform. The numbers on it, by the way, indicate the level of the player in the squad. That is, the smaller the number, the better the player. The day of the match came, and it turned out that Kozume was the setter of the Nekoma team. Like the previous rivals, the Nekoma team simply did not expect such a quick attack from Kageyama and Hinata, and therefore lagged behind a little at first. But their coach, Nekomata, is too experienced not to try to stop them, and they decided to spend their energy on stopping Hinata. To do this, they assigned Inuoka to personally guard Hinata. At first, he could not block, but the more often they repeated this attack, the closer Inuoka was to stopping Hinata, and as a result, he was still able to stop him, thereby winning the first game. Keishin came to the conclusion that the Nekoma team is a strong average. They do not have an outstanding ace or a setter genius, but at the same time, their team is as balanced as possible, and besides, they have trained their reception very well. During the second game, Hinata's attacks did not pass anymore, and the guys began to worry that these blocks would morally break Hinata. But there was a smile on his face. He understands that they can barely cope with his attacks, and if they come up with a new strategy, they will definitely outplay them. And Keishin has already come up with a new strategy. He asked Kageyama to give passes to Hinata a little softer. With his usual passes, Kageyama passes as he sees fit, leaving Hinata no choice to hit, so Keishin wants Kageyama to give such passes, in which Hinata will have the opportunity to outplay his opponents. Of course, they didn't succeed right away, but after a while, he mastered a new technique. The match was very close. All the players, without realizing it, pushed each other to new heights. Nekoma also used an interesting technique, a backline attack, which Karasuno simply did not expect. Although Karasuno had a good attack, they still suffered in defense and therefore naturally lose in the second game, and therefore in the game as a whole. But Hinata began to ask for another game, and since it was a training match, Nekoma was not against it either. As a result, the players of Karasuno and Nekoma found a common language and will look forward to their next game. Moreover, after this match, Keishin was supposed to leave, but he wanted to take revenge for this match so much that he decided to remain the coach of the Karasuno team. Then finally, the tournament grid was announced, which means it will start very soon. In addition to training with the team, some players practiced individually. For example, Sugawara came up with a new method of communication on the field. He will signal what kind of transfer will be made this time. Yamaguchi also improved because he is the only first year who could not break into the starting lineup. Therefore, he decided to master what others do not have, namely a good serve, which he began to learn from Makoto Shimada, a former Karasuno player, although he will most likely not have time to master it before the start of the tournament. After that, Takeda, together with the team manager Shimizu, found an old sign of the team which said, "Fly," thanks to which the team received incredible motivation to win. Finally, the day of the tournament came, and the first opponent was Tokonami, who, like Karasuno, were considered outsiders of this tournament. Oikawa himself came to watch their match, and for good reason, because Karasuno showed that they are now a team to be reckoned with, and in their first match they defeated Tokonami 2-0, and their next opponents will be Datitech, who once completely broke Asahi. Thanks to the efforts of Hinata and Kageyama, they were able to take the first game, but by the end, they somehow carried out their attacks, because Date-Tech blockers surprisingly quickly adapted to their attacks. Besides, Hinata cannot be on the field forever, because after each change of serve, the players on the field move one position, and when Hinata is on the defensive line, there is little sense from him, so he is replaced by a player who receives balls better. The same goes for Libero. When he moves to the attacker's position, he is replaced by a wing spiker. Nevertheless, Hinata coped with his role successfully because the stronger he shines, the more freedom he gives to his wing spikers, and thanks to the fact that the main blocker was assigned to Hinata, Asahi was finally able to score and gain some confidence. But the game didn't end there, and all of Karasuno's secret moves have already been shown, and if they can't finish the game in the second game, they will most likely lose in the third. The guys squeezed the maximum out of themselves, but Asahi hit the Date-Tech block over and over again. But all his failures were compensated by Nishinoya, who also saved the team over and over again, and during the match point, when Asahi again could not break through them, Nishinoya even kept the ball in the game with the help of his leg, showing incredible speed and desire to win. In addition to this, it is believed that when a team finishes its game, the last pass is always given to the ace, and therefore, so that he overcomes his fears, Kageyama again passed to Asahi, who this time was still able to break through their block, thereby bringing the team victory and returning confidence to himself. Their next opponents in the grid will be Aoba Josai, who, led by Oikawa, demolished their opponents. But first, it is necessary to say why Oikawa wants to crush Kageyama so much. They studied together in middle school, and at that time Oikawa was already finishing this middle school, and Kageyama had just moved to it. But despite his young age, everyone around him recognized him as a genius setter. Because of this, Oikawa developed complexes and a fear of becoming unnecessary. When Kageyama approached Oikawa for help, as his senpai, he rejected him, and at one point he even wanted to fight him, but he was stopped in time and told that volleyball is a team sport, and no matter what a genius you are, you can't win without teammates. Realizing this, Oikawa changed his thinking, thanks to which he was able to receive the award for the best setter at the tournament. But they did not win this tournament because he was defeated by Ushijima from Shiratorizawa, who is considered almost the strongest school player in the country, and therefore Oikawa vowed to defeat him and Kageyama. To achieve his goal, Oikawa trains a lot, and not only with the team because he watches replays of matches of upcoming opponents until late at night to better know their strengths and weaknesses. And the same thing, by the way, was done by Keishin. Finally, the match started, and Oikawa immediately seized the initiative, showing his superiority and experience as a setter. Due to the fact that Kageyama did not succeed, he began to noticeably get nervous and accelerate the pace of the game, which his teammates simply did not keep up with, as a result of which they lost points. To get rid of such problems, Keishin decided to change the setter, and Sugawara entered the field, whose game the opponents simply could not study, because before that he did not play in matches. He was many times more experienced than Kageyama, and with his knowledge, helped the team earn points. In addition, he perfectly understood what his teammates wanted, and therefore was able to build under each and raise the morale of the team. It was hard for Kageyama to watch the game from the bench, but he took it not as something terrible, but as a reason to become better. At this moment, it was Oikawa's turn to serve, and he was so good at it that he knocked down aces over and over again, thanks to which they won the first game. In the second game, the composition of the team was the same, but Keishin changed the scheme. He left Nishinoya and Sawamura in the defensive line so that they would adapt to Oikawa's serves. His plan worked, and they were able to repel Oikawa's serve, earning points. Sugawara's style of play was not as reckless as Kageyama's, but all his passes were like a textbook, so it was not very difficult to get used to them. But Oikawa didn't really care, because he focused on his team's attack. Nevertheless, Sugawara's actions began to be read, and Keishin again had to change something. He decided to release Kageyama again, who this time was like a new version of himself. He looked at the game in a new way, and now he gave the pass, not as he wanted, but as it was convenient for the attacker. Even to Tsukishima, with whom he has a strained relationship, Kageyama found an approach and the right pass, thanks to which the second game went to Karasuno's piggy bank. This spurred Oikawa, and in the third game, he came out very motivated, but Karasuno was also going to win, and all this resulted in the score in the match being as close as possible. Only Seijo managed to get ahead, as Karasuno immediately won back points, and the same worked in the opposite direction. At some point, Yamaguchi entered the field, and he had only one task: to perform an excellent serve, which he learned from Shimada. Keishin hoped that his serve would be able to turn the tide of the game, but Yamaguchi could not throw the net, thereby giving the point to the opponents. But even so, Karasuno did not break down and found the strength to fight to the end. As a result, it all came down to the fact that the scoreboard was equal, 24-24, which means that the team that first gains an advantage of 2 points will win, and Karasuno was as close as possible to this, because they immediately broke out ahead. But Seijo did not let them go so easily, and also fought, and at some point they were already one step away from winning the match. The Karasuno team needed to score the ball by hook or by crook, and Kageyama decided that it would be best to give a quick pass to Hinata in this situation. But Oikawa realized that if Kageyama gets a decisive chance, he will definitely give a pass to Hinata, so he told his teammates to watch this. It turned out the way he said, thanks to which they blocked Hinata and snatched the victory in the match. As a result, Seijo was able to reach the final, but there Oikawa again lost to Ushijima and Shiratorizawa. The defeat in the tournament hit all the members of the Karasuno team very hard, because for some of them it was considered the last. The fact is that the team still has a chance to qualify for the national championship. For this, they need to win the spring tournament. Of course, you need to prepare for it persistently and for a long time, and this will take almost all your free time. And this is precisely the problem. The third-year students of Karasuno have exams on which their admission to the university and their future life depend. It would be foolish to risk your future for the sake of one school volleyball tournament. But Sawamura, Sugawara, and Asahi did not think so, because no matter what, they wanted to get to the nationals. This is exactly what worried Keishin, because he did not want volleyball to bring problems to the guys in the future, so he asked Takeda to have a conversation with them. But even after it, the guys remained true to their decision and desire to play volleyball. Keishin gave the team a day off so that they could mentally move away from the defeat, but the team, without even agreeing with each other, came to an unscheduled training session because none of them wanted to lose again, and therefore they began to prepare hard for the new tournament. Well, how it will all continue we will find out in the second season, a video about which will be released sometime tomorrow. Well, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you in the next video.